I mean,
Hey,
we can go.
everyone. We were just off there like trying to count to ourselves on a couple of things before we went, and did our little pre-show live thing. It's like, wait, what's going on? Yeah. There
The
was
new
a
Globe Swift turbine.
there
That's
was a who was
Art
first, which
Deco
was
meets
Luke.
altitude.
Yeah. Nathan Ballard, he definitely wasn't first. Luke was.
Ninth. He was touting ninth.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
I mean, you
Lovely
can just
bunch
say
tonight.
first. I mean, there's no audit here.
Good to see Mr. Meyer in the chat. See him in the OB chat a bit, and he is in a layover in MDT.
Nice.
I'm not exactly sure where that is.
I have not been in the OB chat.
I haven't memorized all the airport codes yet, but I've memorized a lot.
Yeah. All right.
I'm just very proud of this ticker.
There it is. Yeah. Yes. The endless ticker. Yeah.
Harrisburg. Have fun in Harrisburg.
Hey, you know what? Here's a funny thing. We don't have our videos.
Oh, are you serious?
So Restream reset a whole bunch of stuff on us, and I'm like,
our media's not in there.
Video.
We can still load it and put it in there.
Yeah, if I can find it. I think I can find.
We'll have a little extra time here in the pregame. Let's find it. It's got to get in there anyway,
Yeah. This is when I.
Do you want to have a game of who can find it first?
Yeah, especially the 10 dB version.
Oh yeah, the quiet edit.
Yes.
I
can hear my my NAS downstairs waking up.
Do you have a pet named Nas?
Yeah. No, it's Fast and the Furious, right?
So I'm finding it it appears to be called Live Opener.
Okay.
In the drive. I think that I know that I didn't name that, but it seems like that's something you would have named it, and it seems like you would know what that is, or that it's the
in our drive.
Yeah. If you just go to drive, search MP4, yeah.
Yeah, except for I don't do all caps, so.
Oh, that's right. It's a tell.
Yeah.
Well, play it off air first and see what it does.
Yeah,
if it's a little loud, we'll get by with it, but at least it'll be something.
Yeah.
Luke's got a good idea. Yeah, we need a smooth jazz edit.
Yes.
I do. I did post in the Discord, if you guys saw in the Random BS channel, the Weather Channel Vaporwave.
Yes.
So good.
Okay, we've got two to choose from here. We're gonna go with the one that's probably loud, and we may end up playing that as our outro as well, just because.
Okay.
Nobody cares. Here we are.
Just send it.
Yeah. I'm just happy I found something.
For everybody in the audience, our streaming platform just completely
reset itself.
Reset everything, and so everything that we've had loaded in there in the past is gone, and we're having to reload it. So
we literally had to put in the ticker and everything. So
in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah,
it's all the brain power we have for a whole episode. So we'll see how this goes.
Yeah,
which is not saying much, but
yeah.
Oh, hang on, I found that file.
Is it the one?
No, possibly not. But I've got.
Well, but the outro one has to be the one that has. Oh no, yeah. We'll wing it.
You know what we're gonna do is we're gonna play these, and it's gonna be a nice surprise.
Okay.
We'll see. We'll see who's right about anything.
All right.
I'm just waiting for an upload here. Yeah.
I've got a bunch of. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I found all mine. I'm just waiting for it now. Yeah. Weather Channel Vaporwave. Yeah.
I do think it's time for our next generation intro and outro.
Well, we all know why this happened, AJ. Market in up. Exactly. All right. I believe this one's the right one. It's
We
even
don't have a
minus 10
checklist for
dB.
this, do we?
To
We don't
see
have.
if everything is in place, that is
There's no
always that.
emergency checklist. We need an
So,
emergency
For our
checklist.
for our chat room, if it says "Thank you for joining us, we'll see you next week,"
yeah,
please
stick
ignore it.
around. Yeah.
Right, stick around. We're not going to be going that quickly.
Your airplane checklist does not count the wings.
Okay.
We also don't count this. So, but here we go. Yeah.
All right.
Welcome to the Midlife Pilot Podcast. What is it like to become a pilot in midlife? The challenges are unique, but so are the rewards. Hosts Ben, Brian, and Ted talk learning to fly, growing as pilots, and the joy of flying to destinations. The purpose of the podcast is not to teach, but to share knowledge and experiences. Okay, checklists are complete. Let's get the show started.
Hello and welcome to episode 115 of the Midlife Pilot Podcast. Where we share our experiences and challenges of flying in midlife. Whether you're a seasoned pilot, training for a rating, or just thinking about getting started in aviation, we like to think of the podcast as your aviation companion and your weekly dose of aviation inspiration. My name is Ben. I'm a pilot with an IFR rating and a commercial certificate based in the metro Atlanta area. I like to fly my airplane that sometimes we call the Beast. It's a Cessna 182. Joining us tonight, as always, my friends from Nashville, home of the Bachelorette Super Charlie, flying a Cherokee 180 named Lucy. His name is Brian. And Brian, you're probably starting to get ramped up for the Bachelorette season, aren't you?
It's always Bachelorette season here, Ben. But welcome, everybody. Glad to be here tonight. I'm excited about our show tonight because we get to pick your brain, Ben, and you are effectively our guest. So this is gonna be a good one. I hope you're ready to host and be the guest and the subject of inquiry.
Bring it on. I'm the special guest host, guest host, something like that. Also joining us tonight from Portlandia, flying a flight design CTLS we like to call the Egg. It's our sport pilot extraordinaire. It's all of our friends. Ted, good evening, sir.
Hey, happy to be here.
Glad to have you. For events and announcements, we've been talking about it for over a month now. It's the Big Texas Send, May 2nd through the 4th. We had a quick pre-show meeting. We are getting close to running out of space on the north ramp. So if you want to come, send us your RSVP, but be advised there may be a point in time when we have to say no more RSVPs, but that we can't stop you from coming. But just know that there could be some parking issues down the road. But we are really excited about it. I'm hoping to get this email that I've been talking about for a couple of episodes out this week. We've got one or two more details we need to nail down. It's revolving around, we're going to record a live podcast while we're out there, which will make it the second time we've all been in person. Should be a lot of fun. We've got a lot of itineraries planned that you could go on, or you could go do your own thing, or just go explore Fredericksburg. But it's getting real, fellas. 81
Yeah.
people, I think, is where we're at.
Yeah, I think one of the things we figured out this week is for the live podcast, wouldn't it be great if the people that were there could sit down? What if we did that? Right. So, we're working on very specific things here. It's not just, Ben cooking for everybody like we originally planned.
Let it be known that we care for all of our listeners and we want them to be comfortable.
Yes, but also we are not responsible.
We're not responsible for anything.
But we're not responsible for it. We're going to try our best.
We want you to. And in terms of the parking thing, also, I think it's just, at least right now, I think the thing to say here is when you are choosing which of your airplanes that you're going to be flying, fly perhaps the smaller airplane of your fleet.
Done.
And if you have friends that you want to bring along in multiple airplanes, maybe consider all of you getting in one, and then you can go fly around with other midlifers as well. So
Well,
How
But
many
no, we're getting
planes
really
are on
excited
the?
about it. And again, for those of you who are not on our Discord channel, we will be sending out an email to everybody and providing you with updates. We've got some interesting stuff with our friend Barry, who we had on last week, willing to help out the group as well. So keep your eyes and ears open for that. Brian, I think it's time for some belly scrubbing.
little belly wash. We'll make it quick. We got a lot to get to this
Yep.
evening. We are grateful for you all making this the best pilot community we know of, a positive space where we share everything from training experiences, share personal minimums, tackle ownership challenges, review flight plans, talk about magnetos a lot this week, and best of all, make new aviation friends. Connect with us. You can join our Patreon community from $1 a month or do a one-time annual Patreon drop. Access exclusive content, including check ride debriefs, killing zone conversations, and more. And the Discord community, by the way, amazing debrief with a young glider, first solo. And how old is she? 14,
She's
15?
15 years old.
Yeah.
Amazing kid that makes me realize what an absolute waste of life that I was. Just absolutely worthless. So if you'd like to lament your own childhood and be wowed by the future that is coming, please get in there and check out this debrief. She was great, very enlightening, some good questions and some good answers, and we enjoyed having all of that. So that was just one of the coolest things I think we've done. Anyway, in the Patreon, we have a collection of bonus content that's sort of tagged, and you can kind of go in there and just hit all of that stuff. So watch us live on YouTube, Mondays, 8 p.m. Eastern. Share your stories, midlifepilotpodcast@gmail.com. We read all the messages. You might hear yours on the show. And for everything Midlife Pilot Podcast, community feedback, merch, and more, visit midlifepilotpodcast.com.
Awesome.
That's fantastic.
Speaking of the debriefs, we had one with Prescott Flyers instrument debrief, which I found very interesting. I learned some stuff on that one. And I think we're getting ready to set up another one that's going to be, it's not necessarily a check ride debrief, but one of our Patreon members has just formed a partnership and they've just purchased an airplane. And very curious to hear his story and how that's panned out. And I think there's a lot for all of us to kind of maybe learn and maybe use in the future. So
It's amazing how much you don't know when you first start flying about a partnership. And we've got episodes where we've talked about that stuff, and we'll get into that. But I'm excited for that potential because to have a real world example to be kind of inquiring with and moving along with through time, because there's so many ways that partnerships can be structured and done, and there's a lot of stuff too that's beneath the surface of the legalities and the formation of it. It's there's the etiquette and the, I don't know what's the best way to bring up this or to have this accounted for, and there's a lot of dynamics there. It's essentially it's starting a relationship that is very important. So anyway, looking forward to that. That's awesome. So
I think that's where a lot of the value of the Discord community comes from, because there's a lot of, wait, how do you handle fueling? Do you like the plane full when you leave the plane, or should it be when you first get there? Just all those kind of questions that you have nobody to bounce it off of.
Or the things also that, by the way, I wouldn't want to be out on the wide open internet per se, speaking about some of those particulars. But I think that this group is respectful enough, and it's responsive and connected, and there's a certain amount of social responsibility that I think just kind of comes with it. And so I think we get into some deeper things because of that.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, I'll put a link in the doobly-doo of the episode where you and OG Chris talked about partnerships, because you had a guy from AOPA on, and so that was a cool guest interview. So if you haven't gone back and heard that one, it's probably around episode 20 or so. It was a good one.
Yeah.
I want to hit friend of the show, Alpha Juliet. He says, Lady Delta Juliet says, thanks for the kind words. She enjoyed it also. We're glad to hear that. That's really cool. Hey, Ted, I believe we've got some new Patreon supporters and maybe a few highlights from the server.
Yeah, yeah. It's always good to see things going on. First, let me go over our new Patreon supporters. At the Landomatic level, we have Laura S. At the Hershey Bar level, we have Dominic L, who upgraded. Thanks, Dominic. We have Jason G and Josh C. And at the Beast Stole Kit level, we have Daniel J.
Thanks,
Lot,
guys.
yeah, a lot going on in the community. There was definitely the talk about magnetos this week and what to do in certain situations, which is great. There were 2 new aircraft this week. The one at the partnership, and there's another one. Also, 2 people that announced their weight loss this week, which is great. So, it's a great midlife thing, right? Increasing the useful capacity in your plane. So, yeah. And the other conversation I really liked was talking about how much time and type before you get comfortable with a plane. And that's always, it's always a good question, whether you're renting or owning, either way. Getting comfortable with a new plane type is definitely a big deal.
Very cool. Any well, have any of us been flying lately? Because I have not.
I got up.
I did. Yeah,
Brian,
I've done
go
some.
ahead.
Yeah, I've done a little
Yeah.
bit. A little bit.
I'm going to get to your. I watched your. Whenever Siskin posts a video, I get my notification from YouTube, and I'll be on I-285 in the far left lane, and I will slam on the brakes and pull over 6 lanes of traffic to get to the emergency lane, so I could at least pull it up on my phone. And this was a really good one, and I just wanted to give that one a shout out. I liked how you brought in just the right amount of humor at just the right amount of time.
A little levity to counteract some of my other criticism.
but
Perhaps.
criticism well received and well spoken. If nothing, sir, you are eloquent. So go check out Brian's YouTube channel, please. You will do yourself good.
Yeah.
Do you want me to tell you about the flying part?
I do want to tell you, but I listen.
Because I've got a question.
Okay, lay it on me.
All right.
Let's hear about it.
All right. So, our friend Luke and Luke is in the chat here saying, I left a funeral to go watch Brian's video. Oh. So, so went and picked up Luke at Upper Cumberland. We went to Athens, Tennessee to go to the Swift Museum. And this was probably the 3rd or 4th time that we had aspired to go to the Swift Museum. And there'd always be some reason why their runway was closed or something else was going on. So anyway, I had a great flight, and it was very bumpy. And the landing was one of those, it's 10 gusting 20 right down the runway, but the variable winds are going completely side to side, opposite crosswind. So it could either be a 10 knot crosswind to the left, a 10 knot crosswind to the right, or everything's fine. It was just really fun. So a little interesting there. And then we had a great time at the Swift Museum. I just really quickly want to say that if you can get to Mike, India and go to the Swift Museum, 1000% worth it. It's not a huge facility, right? But it's what they have is amazing. And, there's not that many of these planes. I am obsessed with the Swift. I just think it's the coolest airplane. So to go there, the people there were so kind and helpful and shared a lot of knowledge. And it was just a fantastic all around trip. One of the things I wanted to ask you guys about, and I meant to ask you last week about this, I think, was when Luke and I were flying back, it was, like I said, it was very, very bumpy. And there was one point where we hit some turbulence that was on a level that I'm not sure that I've encountered before. It was violent and upon us very quickly. I mean, there was definitely a lot of, moving and shaking and bumps and all this throughout the whole flight. But there was one shuddering wave of turbulence that hit that was so beyond the pale. And in my immediate reaction, I want your feedback on whether this was the right thing to do or not. You're always saying you're reduced to the level of your primacy when something is upon you in terms of a situation or whatever. This was one of those situations where it was upon me so quickly, and I realized what my primacy was. So you guys tell me what you think, and you tell me what you think in the chat. But we were cruising along. We weren't in the yellow arc, but we weren't blazing, but we were just kind of normal Cherokee 180 cruising along. Violent turbulence. My first response was I actually pulled the power and simultaneously pushed the nose down. Is that weird? My logic, I'll tell you what my logic was. A, slow this plane down now. 2, would like to keep also flying plane.
Yes.
Keep air attached to wing, plenty of altitude, just point it down.
Yeah.
So I don't think that that's wrong. I'll say that. I don't see anything wrong with pointing the nose down. However, I think your initial point, whenever I hit any form of turbulence that starts outside my, other than light chop, that throttle's coming back. I know 100% at max gross weight, my maneuvering speed is 128 miles an hour. And if I'm lighter, then of course it could go high, it could go up from there. But that's what I shoot for. And whether I'm keeping wings level, nose up, nose down, that's all that I want. And for me, if I'm cruising at an indicated speed of 140 miles an hour, 150, I'm not going to put the nose down because I want that speed to come down first.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that it's a right or wrong thing to do to put the nose down. Now, obviously, pulling the power back is absolutely the right thing to do, in my opinion. I am not a CFI, nor did I stay at a Holiday Inn, but I believe we have our friend Nathan Ballard's in the chat, and he probably will back me up. Yeah, slow the doggone thing down.
Yeah.
And your
And
stall
Zach
horn went
Norton
off, right?
in our chat says, unload the wings. Makes sense to me.
Ted, what were you saying?
Your stall horn went off, didn't it?
No, not in this situation.
Okay.
It did on the climb out.
Oh, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
I was thinking we were going about 80 knots, and I was getting the stall horn because of the stall light because the winds were so crazy.
Yeah. I'm with Aero Grizzly here. You yell out your controls.
Just to whoever.
I did that to my CFI once when I was in primary training when I was like 5 feet off the runway. It's like, hello, I'd like to reset this. Yes.
Well, anyway, I just thought that was an interesting thing.
It is.
If I was in the type of plane that was slick enough to where I felt like that would be, even with fully reduced power, if I really felt that putting the nose down was going to accelerate the plane in any kind of meaningful way relative to that power being pulled,
right,
then I probably would have thought about that a little different. But in a Cherokee with a Hershey bar wing, I just thought, just make this all slow down. We're at 6,500 feet. We're not flying IFR or anything. We're not. It just stop the bus for a minute because I wasn't sure if it was gonna get immediately even somehow worse,
right?
And so I wasn't sure what we were getting into or not, and so but it was definitely some of the most violent. I mean, Luke and I were talking about it. There's the kind of he's saying here the weird thing was we had rotation on the lateral axis and not just the roll axis, and that's what I haven't experienced before. He says, "Yeah,
you're riding a Bronco,
yeah,
around all over the place."
But anyway, but it was awesome and did some great flying and great fun. And Swift Museum, highly recommend it. And if you have a different idea about what I should have done, email us at midlifepilotpodcast@gmail.com and tell me what your Monday morning quarterback response would be.
If the situation ever presents itself to where I can sit right seat in your airplane and you allow me to talk on your radios, it will be, for me, 5116 Lemur all day long. That's the one thing I took away from your video. That's not really true, but... So the topic tonight, we're going to talk about flying your plane for business versus GA. What is that? Did I mess it up?
No, I was just laughing at Nate's comment. I'm sorry. Oh. He said, "Don't forget to log the .001 aerobatic time."
That's yes. There you go.
Oh, sorry.
So
Sorry.
no, it's okay. You know, we're all ADHD. We all are watching the chat as we're talking, so it's perfectly fine. But no, getting back to the point, I will go around the horn here. I will start, and this is again about us using our planes to get to places for work or taking the airlines. And this has been discussed on the Discord server a good bit, and we thought it would be a good topic to bring up tonight. So I'm going to let you guys. We'll do the round robin, find out who's doing what first, and then you guys just grill me, treat me
All
like
right.
a sorry guest that you couldn't find, you picked up off the street.
All right. I'll go first, and then Ted, and then between us, we'll good cop, bad cop this whole thing.
I like it.
Yeah.
So well, welcome to the show, Ben.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Thanks for taking the time.
I'm a busy man. I've got a lot of business.
So I think about the fact that you fly for business. You fly for business often. It's not just a here and there. And I believe that you're probably one of the best people to talk to about this because you are a true midlife pilot, as well as even before you were flying with a commercial certificate, you were doing this, right? It's not necessarily causal
Doing
to
it
that.
IFR and as a private pilot as well.
Yeah, so that's, I think, where to start is to kind of think back to that time. Take us back to young Ben, 5 years ago, whatever it was, and when did it occur to you that you could fly for business? And you've been in the same job for a long time, so it's been framed around perhaps those types of meetings and all of that. So that's a constant that you're working with. But I guess take us back to the beginning when was it in training that you thought this is a practical reason why I'm learning to fly, or when did it occur to you that this was a thing? And then how did you, what were some of your first questions that you had about it?
So I'll say this. It first occurred to me, I'll never forget it. And I don't think I've told the story before. We were up at Lake Lanier. It was a Memorial Day weekend, and I was with my sister and brother-in-law, and he kind of pulled me aside, and he was still flying for Delta at the time. And he said, I'm getting this airplane, and I'm looking for somebody to share it with. And he goes, I know you've always wanted to learn how to fly because, we always talk aviation when we're ever together.
Oh
And
man.
and so we started talking about the deal. And you both know Terry pretty well. And she was like, oh, I don't know. And then it was like 15 minutes after we went different areas of the boat and we're hanging out. I was like, I could use an airplane and go down to Savannah just for the day and be home a lot more often than I have been for the last 20 something years. It occurred to me immediately, I guess, is the answer, that it was possible. Now, that was before I knew anything. It was before I took a deep dive into my company's travel policies. But I knew that it was a possibility, a distinct possibility.
Cool. And we'll get into that
Yep.
piece.
Yes.
I want to open that up a
So,
little bit later, but yeah.
and as a matter of fact, when I was going through my private training and I did the long cross country, I specifically went to 2 airports that I knew that I was going to be going to on business. And when I did my night cross country, I knew I was going to do that with, I wanted to fly to an airport that was in my business. And just for a little bit of background, I am in sales, and I have a geographic territory that's everything south of Atlanta in the state of Georgia. But it does require travel to other states as well. But my clientele is based in that area. So I knew that I was going to be going to these places a lot.
So let me ask you some rapid fire 20 questions. Um, uh, when of your business travel over, let's say, 2 hours of driving, what percentage of that do you do by the plane now?
Well, it's different now with the experience that I have. than when I was a private pilot. If during my private pilot, I'm looking at the weather, I'm setting meetings, and I know that I have to be at these meetings. And the last thing that I wanted to do was cancel a meeting because I couldn't get there by airplane. That's
Yeah.
doing my customers a disservice. And I wasn't going to put my needs ahead of theirs in that respect. So um, I'll give you an example. Macon is a 2-hour drive, probably hour and 45, but you can go on the maps. There is traffic south of Atlanta 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is always congested. And that's what usually makes it 2 hours. So if I have one meeting or even two meetings and it's going to put me in that traffic, then I'm going to fly because it could be 2.5 hours. But if it's an early morning meeting and I have a good chance of missing it, then I'll drive. When I was a private pilot, if there was any chance of, low ceilings or low visibility, then I'm driving no matter what. But
I like
today, another example is Columbus is also, for me, it's an hour and 45-minute drive. There's a hassle factor in that the rental car companies, Columbus is home of Fort Moore now. It used to be called Fort Benning. It's Fort Moore, which is home of the infantry. It's where everybody goes through basic training. So there's a lot of military families coming in and out. Rental cars are an issue. I made a rental car reservation, and just like the Seinfeld episode, that car disappeared. They know how to take the reservations. They don't know how to keep the reservations.
that's right.
But I got lucky because, and this just happened a couple of weeks ago, they had a courtesy car there that they were going to let me use. They have a 2-hour limit, and I had one meeting canceled, so I only needed it for about 2 hours. And if they're nice enough where if you're a little bit over, they're pretty chill about it. So
Yeah.
that could have been, I could have been trying to find an Uber to get me to this meeting, and it's just awkward. I don't want to do that. So to avoid that, next time I'll probably just drive down there because it's an hour and 45. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so it's very situational, but I think
Yes.
the takeaway there is it's if you were recommending or if you were advising someone who was considering doing this for their job, the takeaway from that piece to me is what you said about it's not about what's best for you and what makes your life better. It's really, does this fall into the more total cause of serving your customer and elevating in some way the work that you're doing, or something to that effect. So that's good.
And the hassle factor. So there's some airports that I can go to where there's a courtesy car every time, and they're just like, yeah, just bring it back whenever you get a chance. And I don't even quite, I'll go down and fly down to that route every single time because it's just easy.
Yeah.
Then there's also those moments where 2 weeks ago, I had to go from Birmingham to Thomaston, back to Columbus, LaGrange, then back to here. And that's just too much drive over a 2-day period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and again, I had transportation arrangements were very, very easy. By the way, quick tip for those of you in the Southeast, if you ever find yourself going to Birmingham, Bravo Hotel Mike, it's the Class Charlie there, go to Millionair because their courtesy car was a Mercedes GLE, like a 2024 model. I mean, it was beautiful.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Well, see, this is why people come to the podcast, Ben, is for that kind of information.
They were really, yeah, and they're very, very nice people there. So, and the gas was actually pretty cheap too.
What would you have done with the trip you just did that was 4 places in 2 days? Because a lot of these, the plan is you will drive if you need to. You're ready to do that. But there's an example one that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise.
It's a great question. So the purpose of going to Thomaston was spend a little time with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would have done had the plane been unavailable is I would have driven to Birmingham and come back home and spent the night and got up really, really early on the next day to drive down to Columbus.
Yeah.
not ideal. The flight from Thomaston to Columbus, which ironically, their runways aren't perfectly in alignment. They're not the same designation, but when you exit, so you take off runway 12 and you just turn to the southwest, I am literally like on a 40-mile final for Columbus's airport. It was kind of weird. And it's a control tower, Brian. So I didn't have to worry about pattern entry. Before you give me a hard time.
Right. You don't have a Cirrus, so
That's right.
so
But
well,
no, that's I will split it up. Or what I would have done is gone to from Birmingham to Columbus and gotten a hotel room.
cool. So one of the things I want to sort of walk back a little bit. That's
Okay.
getting down into the weeds of very specific scenarios and things. And while that's super great, what I really want to understand is what would be the most helpful to people that are maybe even like me that would have some cause sometimes to do that. Different worlds, but obviously, let's talk a little bit about why I typically don't fly for business, or pretty much don't, and why Ted definitely does not. And so, Ted, you and I can go back and forth on this for a second, but
Sure.
I can say that for me,
Brian, I want to jump in real quick, and
huh.
I got a feeling that the FAA may be listening.
Hmm.
It's important to point out that I am not using my airplane to receive compensation for operating that flight.
Yes.
This is merely incidental to business, and I just want everybody out there to know before people start, you know, well, this far aim says you can't do this, and this
Yep.
under those.
Yeah.
This is
Incidental.
incidental to business. So I'm sorry to
Incidental to business. Yes. Thank you for clarifying that. We don't want to make. If anybody wants to send the FAA after us, maybe just try to first assume that we're doing the right thing versus the wrong thing, and then ask. But yeah, so I've had a handful of situations where I've gone to maybe film something or do something, and I've had all manner of um, good, bad, ugly with that. Part of the also issue for me is, and this is for you, Ted, a little bit different. Ted, you are the only person that flies your plane, so you know
Yeah.
exactly what's going on with it all the time, and there's no mysteries there, other than the ones that are inherently natural to aviation and
How does
airplanes.
this fly? Yes.
Yeah. But for me, I've had situations where, the person that is the partner in my plane flies the day before me and says, "Hey, I don't know, I'm seeing some oil in a weird spot. I don't know. It might be a thing. It might not be a thing." And I don't have the experiential basis to go, well, I know what I did there. I know I just spilled a little oil and that's just it running out, versus having a better sense that this is a real issue. So I've had to call things off for things that are completely innocuous or non-issues. It just adds a whole other level of vulnerability. And then also, as everybody knows, I'm a VFR only pilot, and so I have those limitations upon me as well. So I generally don't think about it as but I don't have a job that is the kind of job you have where you have a regional kind of situation. It's really perfect for you, but so there's nothing in the regulations that says I can't go fly somewhere for something that is incidental to business. I haven't really done a whole lot of that. Now, Ted, tell us about how is your business?
Yeah.
How's your incidental to business flying going?
So I was talking to before the show to you about this, and one of the things a sport pilot cannot do is fly incidental to business. Can't fly at night, can't fly IFR, and you don't have that privilege that a private pilot has. So I have to be very careful. I don't fly to business things. Even if I had them, I wouldn't. So that's one of those weird sport pilot restrictions is that you just don't do that. So um, I still get plenty of fun flying it though.
Yeah. Well, this is a great time. Adam just asked the question where I know where this is all going. So Ben, let's just pull that up. And he's asking, when flying incidental to business, does your own plane insurance cover you, or does your employer's insurance cover?
My planes or my insurance coverage is on the hook, and my employer does not. And we'll get into this. I know Barry asked us to talk more about the company policies and how that works. I do want to point something out, and it's something that you just brought up. That's something that I have to take into consideration for any business trip that I take. We all have heard the phrase, if you have time to spare, go by air. If I have a business meeting and it's before noon, I might need to go the day before, depending on how long the flight is. I allow myself enough time to drive there to
Yeah.
know that the plane is working so I can do my pre-flight and work out any bugs, because I have been bit by that one time where I got to the plane, something was wrong with it, it wasn't flyable, and I made the appointment, I had to push it back a little bit. But that's a very important point, is that you do need to give yourself the space in most situations to drive. The other aspect of it is the trip that I took last week. I talked about it. The we had a meeting at 11 o'clock, and my plan was to get there at 10:30, and those ceilings were not lifting. That was cutting it a lot more close than I wanted it to be. I had my outs. There was no get there-itis. I could have landed at an airport and shown up 10 minutes late. The owner of this agency that I was calling on is my pilot mentor. He knows this whole deal. He understands how that
Oh, nice.
happens.
Yeah.
So it would have been fine, but you do have to think through that you could show up to the airport and have a non-working airplane, and you need to have other plans, or cancel your meetings.
Yeah, or you can have a non-working airport that is your destination.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So, but yeah, it's my insurance that covers me. I mean, our insurance basically covers you as long as you're within the regulations of the FAA, which I'm doing.
Yeah.
And
Well, in terms of Barry's question about company policies and how to navigate those, I think that what I think would be interesting for you to do is to frame your sharing of knowledge here from the perspective of you are advising someone who doesn't know anything about this, that you don't want to be on the hook for making any decisions for them or making any assumptions about their situation, but maybe walk it from, if you were advising me or well, definitely not Ted. But
Well, I can advise Ted, and it's don't fly.
yeah.
don't. Yeah.
You're going to have a grandma in every town that you have business. So no, but I just want to kind of really take it from the beginning. Like, what are all of the things that you need to be thinking about, and how would you be ahead of the questions that a company would have, or how do you go about, like, what? Because I would imagine there's ways you can go about that where you could very much set off alarm bells and blow up the whole thing before it's even right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So here's how I'd put it, and I learned a lot from our discussion on Discord. There are companies that approach it different ways. Before I ever took the first flight with my company, also understand I've been with them for 27 years, and I have a lot of respect for them, and they've been very good by me my entire career. So I don't want to risk that. I've got a good thing going. So I approached them and I said, this is what I want to do. And they were very plain with me. They said, we have a policy that doesn't allow for private flying, period. Now, it was really geared towards, you can't go charter a jet to get to your destination, but there is no reimbursement policy. And they said, basically, you can do it, just don't ask for any reimbursement for anything. Everybody, like our company, it's really a cool company. You can send in photos and it shows up on your screensaver. They started doing this during the pandemic just to kind of bring everybody in a closer knit community. What's your one thing? It's your kids, it's your dogs, it's what. Well, obviously mine's flying, so I would send pictures of night, or on top of cloud, on going over the top of clouds or whatever. And I would send those in, and people were calling me all the time going, oh, this is so cool. And I had a couple people reach out, oh, I'm a pilot, this. So it's commonly known that I fly my airplane. And they created an environment, or they basically told me, this is the deal, you cannot be compensated or reimbursed for any of the expenses associated with anything of flying. which I told them I am perfectly happy with that. I would pay $200 to be in a time machine any day of the week.
Right.
With that said, in the Discord server, I saw people who said whose companies encouraged them to go get their private pilot's license, all the way to the point of do not fly an airplane for private flying for in any form or fashion in the course of doing business, period. So my advice is talk to your HR or whoever it may be that is over that part of your company's travel policies, and talk to them about it and be real about it, because if you get caught, then Lord knows what could happen.
Yeah, that talking to HR is good. There was also another angle in that Discord conversation though. That
Yes.
yeah,
To borrow a phrase, don't ask, don't
yes,
tell.
yeah,
And
uh,
and that's kind of how I started. Here's the thing, Brian, you hit on it. A grandmother in every city in the state of Georgia. I my sister lives in St. Simons, and I have business down there. So I'm going to
yeah,
go see my sister over the weekend, and I'm going to go drop in on this customer on Monday. So
right,
where do you draw the line?
Yeah.
right,
There, you can play that game.
Yeah. Or if you have a partner that you've been trying to convince that I don't know, polyamory is the new thing to do, and then it's like
a
okay,
spouse and everything. Yeah.
this is how it's going to work. It's like the 70s all over
Wasn't going to
again.
go down that road, but you did, and that's
Man,
okay.
I don't know. I can't afford that. So yeah,
That's right. That's right. There's no way that anybody can financially withstand all of that. By the way, I know we got about 10 minutes left, and I want as much from the chat as possible. So if you
Yeah.
guys keep the stuff coming in, this is awesome.
yeah. I
Here's a
want to
great one.
highlight.
Jason said, my company policy was that I had to get my instrument rating. I have a friend who my boys played hockey with. He owned an airport consulting business, and he had a group of about 10 employees, and he would pay for half their private pilot's license as a company perk. I mean, how cool is that?
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah,
So, yeah, I imagine that companies will have different requirements. A lot of it may be surrounding insurance requirements for that corporation. If they have somebody who's a stated pilot, they want them to have X number of hours. I don't know.
Is there
It
something where you can just say, there's a lot of times where you would go to a company, like an HR person, and you would say, "Hey, I'm a pilot. I'd like to fly to work things." They're not going to likely have that on the top of mind, or they're going to have to look that up or something. And I would imagine in a busy world with a lot of things going on, they might just go on a feeling and say, "Well, I don't know about that." Like, I don't know. You might really be putting yourself in a spot. Would it be helpful to research your own company policies that are available first, and then is there even as a follow up to that something where you can kind of have in a back pocket, maybe I don't know, some sort of a waiver that's already ready to go that you're just saying, I don't need any special consideration here. Just sign this and
so I guess it'll be really obviously be dependent upon your company. My company's policy is very well written out. It is a full pay, it's travel policy. This is what you can and cannot do. And there is no mention of me flying my own airplane, but there is also very detailed descriptions of you are not allowed to charter any type of airplane at any point in time for anything that is company related, meaning you can't go charter a plane to go to the beach and then 2 days later go on appointments. They're very, very specific. And it occurred to me in going into that detail, or as much detail as they went into, with no mention of you flying your own airplane. I mean, I think they would have thought of that, I guess. And I did not actually reach out to my HR department. We have a chain of command, and I ran it up to my manager. He ran it up to his, and it went up that way. And it just came back saying, "Hey, just don't ask for expenses, and everything will be fine."
yeah,
Because that could be construed as chartering a plane, and it just gets kind of fuzzy there, and that's fine. That's completely fair in my opinion.
yeah. I want to highlight what Zach is saying here. He said, I've heard it suggested along the lines of don't ask, don't tell, flying your own dime and submit vehicle mileage as though you drove. Has anyone done that? Love to have you write in
As a
if you've
matter of
done that.
fact,
Yeah.
I can neither confirm nor deny if I've submitted mileage. No, actually, my manager has suggested that I do so, and I typically will do that. I don't do it every single time because the way our expense structure is, it's really a pain in the ass to calculate the mileage and doing all that. And for me, it's almost not worth the effort if it's a really short distance. So, but Zach, that's a great point.
Nautical miles is the tell. If you
Well, I do it as if I'm driving, so
Yeah.
which is even better. But the point is that if I'm flying up to Toccoa, which is a 30-minute flight, and it's 115 miles, it's not really worth the effort. But that's a great point. The other aspect of it is my company encourages us when we go on trips to rent cars.
yeah.
So if I go to Savannah for 2 or 3 days and I'm renting a car, I will expense that to the rental car. Can be expensed to the company, so they do absorb that cost.
I have one more question.
Okay.
We'll get to Chris's here in just a second. My question is, you would think that on paper, objectively reasoning here, that there would be no difference between your minimums for any flight you would do versus your minimums relative to a business flight. Are there any particular considerations other than the kind of things you've mentioned that are really more about convenience? I'm talking about more specific to actually flying and just your actual minimums. Is there any difference for those things between your personal and business flying?
It's the
Or do you have a piece of your larger minimums? Do you have something in there that addresses?
it's not
Yeah.
from a um, ceiling standpoint, or my personal flying minimums. There really isn't. It's more of the time when I'm flying for taking the family down somewhere or taking Terry somewhere. We have a day and a half gap that we can play with. If I have a business trip that has a 45-minute gap, then I'm driving. So there is a minimum as far as the time crunch that I'm on. And the other aspect of it is I don't want to have get theritis. I am very aware of that. And a business meeting can put you into that situation of get theritis worse than anything else.
What about approach minimums, or what about anything to do with weather? Do you have anything that you add a buffer to so that you have a little bit more security in keeping yourself away from the get theritis or things that feel related to pressure?
Not really, Brian.
Okay.
I feel like I'm safe. I don't feel like I need to be more safe flying for
I'm
business
not
than I
saying
do
you're
in
out of
normal.
control and I just feel like if I were in that
Yeah,
situation, I
when
would be
my boss is
very
in the
yeah.
plane, then I just go, I don't care what the crosswinds are. We're going. We're sending it.
Send it.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm taking both of us out at the same
Right.
time. No, I understand your question. I would say no, not really. There's
I
just not
mean,
that much of a difference.
a Cat 300 is pretty much a minimum. So yeah, that counts.
I
I
will
want to
say this
highlight.
though, I do consider, because I take coworkers with me on flights, and their experience in the airplane does come into play. If I know it's going to be a bumpy flight, I want to tell them this is what's going to happen. I told
Yeah.
you about, I took a client up. We were doing meetings up in Kentucky, and we got the afternoon off. And he goes, it was in the fall. We were over by Kentucky Dam State Park. We said, let's go fly around there. I said, it's really bumpy up there. And sure enough, we get on final, and he paints my dash.
Oh, yeah.
Eesh.
Yeah.
So, but he was very nice. He cleaned it up. He felt really bad. He's a
Oh man.
true blue customer for me now. So,
Well,
all
I
right,
want to.
Ted, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to hit Chris's comment and then a question back to you. Chris H says, fun fact, in the military, there are actually published per diem rates of reimbursement specific to travel by GA aircraft. That's pretty cool. And it's good for us to keep in mind that there are places that do that. So my question to you is, fortunate that your work is all very regional. It's roughly half of a state. I know that's kind of
That's fair.
not always true, but
2/3.
roughly. How would that change if you were half the country?
Well, it's a great question because I just got notified last week that I actually have a meeting in Detroit in April. And so it gave me cause to think if I had much larger territory, it's kind of do what we would do in the fly-in. I'd probably buy a refundable airline ticket.
Yeah.
And then when we get close enough to see what the weather's like, it's going to be in April. So up there, I'm not as worried about icing. Not to say it's not non-existent, but some of the major things that get me, and I will go there the day before on a long trip like that. I will give, again, it comes back to that time crunch. I am going to give myself plenty of time. I have had some business meetings in Dallas, Texas. I've flown out there twice. Again, the dinner was at 7. I left my house at 8 in the morning and got there by noon. You know what I mean? I am giving myself a huge window.
Yeah. Well, Atlanta to Detroit and Atlanta to any city in Texas is also a little different because most of your flying is to small towns. And so commercial isn't even an option for those.
That's right.
Yeah. So it's a huge kind of time saver for that. I'm
Absolutely.
going to put a couple links in the doobly-doo really about Walmart, of all people, that use a lot of private jets. And it's like, why would Walmart spend money on private jets? The reason is because they're going from one small town to the next. And it's so much faster. They can get so much more done in the same day by doing that. So one of my favorite YouTubers is Half as Interesting. And we'll put that link in there.
Yeah.
Cool.
As we wrap up. Yeah.
Any more questions? Lord Alpha Juliet asked what industry Ben works in. I work in the insurance industry. I'm a wholesaler of employee benefits. And I'll let everybody figure out what that actually means.
Yeah, it's a pretty standard job. Is there you have any final words of wisdom for everyone on the topic?
Yeah, do your homework, find out what your company will and will or not allow you to do, and then definitely give yourself the time buffer that you're going to need. That's where you get into the most trouble. So that would be my final words of wisdom.
Hey, thanks for giving us the time, Ben. You've been a great guest.
Okay, that's great. Maybe you'll have me back on soon.
Yeah, not so sure.
We'll call you.
Jury's still out. Yeah, Aero Grizzly actually has it correct. I'm in the import-export business. Vanderlei Industries. Another Seinfeld reference. Very good. Very cool. Well, we appreciate everybody joining us tonight. It's been a great crowd in the chat. And I do. Do you guys have anything else?
No, we're good, man.
Related?
Do you have final words of wisdom for us?
I do. And I was inspired by your video for these words of wisdom. And again, everybody, I'm drawing a blank on the name of it. It's of your most recent video.
It's Flying Sideways.
There we go. And I really like how you tied that into current topics. Okay. Tonight's wit and wisdom. The only thing more dangerous than ignorance is the illusion of knowledge.
Boom.
Boom.
Wow.
Ted, do we think we have an outro ready?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it when a plan comes together. Everybody, thank you all for joining us tonight. We really appreciate all the support and everybody joining in. Signing off, episode 115 of the Midlife Pilot Podcast. Good night, everybody.
Welcome to the Midlife Pilot Podcast. What is it like to become a pilot in midlife? The challenges are unique, but so are the rewards. Hosts Ben, Brian, and Ted talk learning to fly, growing as pilots, and the joy of flying to destinations. The purpose of the podcast is not to teach, but to share knowledge and experiences. Okay, checklists are complete. Let's get the show started.